This is the best of First and Last, the podcast, with Mike Golic Jr. and Robin Lundberg.
First and Last, Robin Lundberg here. Mike Golic Jr. is off today after playing some golf, some strenuous golf. No green jackets involved. I have a question. If you win the Masters, is it appropriate to wear your green jacket wherever you go for a while? It's the most practical apparel of championships, right? Is it not? I mean, I don't know if it matches many things, and you might look a bit arrogant, a bit Shooter McGavin-ish if you walk around wearing the green jacket, but I'm curious what people think about that. I got a poll up on my Twitter page if it's acceptable. You know, people wear their Super Bowl rings and the like to specific events. I don't know if you wear it all the time. You know, I found out you only get to keep the Masters jacket when you're a defending champion, but in that time period that you have it, is it okay to don the green jacket? Now, last night, NBA is the talk of the town, and sports talk radio, top 40 at the moment. You know, if you're doing the talk radio DJ or music DJ, welcome to the show. Hey, I'm going to play the hits. You guys have been requesting it, and that is Rest in the NBA. You know, I talk a lot about the sports talk radio greatest hits album. I don't think Rest in the NBA makes its way there yet, but it's definitely a hot song at the moment. It's at least a one-hit wonder. And you see it on display again last night, and it does show you one thing. They talked about this a lot on Mike and Mike yesterday, and the problems with the NBA regular season. Now, I think in some ways it's a little overblown, because if you're a basketball fan, you're just watching. It doesn't matter if the stakes are there. With that said, this season, there's only one answer. It has to be shorter. Right? I mean, that's it. There's no grand plan here. There's no great discovery we need to all make. The season just needs to be shorter. That's how you fix a lot of these problems. I mean, what you could do is start it later, or you could start it close to the same time, maybe just a little bit later, and spread it out a little bit more. And you have teams play on specific nights, right? So you know your team plays on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Or your team plays on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And you spread it out a little bit over the course of the season. That's how you fix it. I mean, I know there's the revenue talk and everything like that, but I understand there's other ways to generate the money, and you know, you've had people like here was Daryl Morey, by the way, on Mike and Mike yesterday, making a similar case.
Most of the games in the regular season do not make a huge difference to the overall prize. And two, we also have a game that's structured where the better teams beat the worst teams at a much higher rate. So by shortening the number of games, and this is a tough gamble for the NBA, and I understand that, but it's almost for sure that by shortening the number of games, the ratings would rise, and it would lead to higher television money. It's not the fact that in 1960 whatever, we magically settled on 82 games, and that magically was the exact right amount of games to help us maximize overall revenue for the players and owners.
Now, I didn't agree with everything he said yesterday. He was talking about, you know, shortening playoff series to one game and variance and all that, bringing in fans. I mean, I think in the NBA it's a little different than other sports because people want to see the best player. They want to see the best team, and they may be disappointed if those teams don't make it that far. But as far as shortening the season, it's a duh. 82 games is just too long. It's too long the way the game is played right now. The draft lottery, I'll give you my theory on that a little bit later in the show, but the whole preamble there, the reason I'm saying that about rest and all that is because last night you have a game for the number one seed. I mean, this is the fuel for the people who are saying the season is meaningless and all that. There's a game for the number one seed last night, the Cavaliers, and their star guys aren't playing. Second night of a back-to-back, of course, but it shows you the seeding, what you're supposedly playing for all season, is prioritized less than getting guys one night off. And I also think it was the correct move, by the way. But the Celtics wind up beating the Nets. They went out to a big lead. They almost pulled a Cavs from the other night. It got a little tight as that game went along, but they wound up winning the game. Really good game from Al Horford. And then the Cavs played a tight game against the Heat last night. They went to overtime. And the Cavs had a roster out there that's a 20-win roster, maybe. if we're being generous. And that shows you the other parts of this conversation, and that's just how much worry there should be about the Cleveland Cavaliers in general. Because the Cleveland Cavaliers have one equalizing force. We all agree on what that is and who that is. We know. It's LeBron James. They have him on their team. So that makes a huge difference, obviously. But otherwise, there's really no case for them. There are a lot of things wrong that ail them at the moment. And you could just point to when the guy's not around. We're now at 4-22, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Since he came back to Cleveland, their record when he hasn't played. That's 0-7. 0-7 without him this year. And, I had nitpicky people yelling at me on Twitter last night. Check the stats when it's, LeBron doesn't play, but neither does Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving didn't play last night. I was going through it before the show and checking games, going through the box score to check games where LeBron didn't play, but Love and Irving did. And I think it's 4-11 over the last 3 years. So both of those guys in the lineup and LeBron not in the lineup. They've gotten some of their wins that way, but that's still a dismal record. Any way you spin it, you can look at net rating this year. The Cavs' net rating is plus 7.7, meaning they outscore teams by 7.7 points per 100 possessions with LeBron on the court versus minus 8.5 with him off the court. That's a 16-point swing. 16-point swing. They can't function because they don't have other people who impact the game in multiple ways. They're a lottery team without him. We've looked at their defense this year. Their defense is just plain bad. And we'll make that Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, half the cost. They need him as that unifying force, both as a guy who's going to play defense and clean up messes and as a communicator, because communicating is a big part of defense. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable networks. But aside from that, they have a scorer in Kyrie Irving, and then they have a bunch of guys who fit well around LeBron when he's out there because they can shoot, they can spot up shoot, but they aren't impacting the game in multiple ways. And Kyrie, the two things they got going for him, they got LeBron as this overwhelming force who we know goes through the Eastern Conference. It's now 6 times in a row. And they got Kyrie, who is a bona fide stud as a scorer. One of the best in the world. You could make the argument, even if you just want to get one bucket, you could go to him. But, he hasn't proven himself to elevate a team. Aside from that, Love and Kyrie together have never spent a second in the playoffs without LeBron on their team. So, you're talking about one guy versus some pretty good teams out in the East.
First and last, the podcast.
If one team is going to beat the Cavs this year, I'd pick the Raptors in the East. Remember, they blew them out twice last year. Cavs were playing stronger. And the Raptors, I think, have gotten a little forgotten because Kyle Lowry was out for so long. But now he's back. And they have a very versatile team. They added Serge Ibaka and P.J. Tucker at the deadline. So they can now give you a number of looks. They've got Lowry, who is just an all-around really good player. Obviously could score, plays defense, hustles, has an impact even when he's not shooting the ball well. They've got DeRozan, who is the assassin. Can get buckets when buckets aren't there. They've got guys like Patrick Patterson and DeMarre Carroll who can play a couple of spots. They've got P.J. Tucker to play defense on the perimeter to try and put on LeBron. They've got Ibaka who can shoot from the outside now but can play small ball center. They've got Valanciunas who can get you buckets down low. So as far as an overall design and an overall team and an overall rotation, the Raptors are better than the Cavaliers. I mean, you could maybe make the case Washington's played very well, with John Wall and that drive and kick game. Otto Porter, his three-point shot has made them dangerous. That they're a new team that wasn't around a year ago. That's kind of dangerous. And Boston is just a really well-coached team with a really nice group of players and a really good rotation. And they're a modern design team because they can defend with Avery Bradley, maybe the best perimeter defender at his spot in the league. Marcus Smart, defensively. Crowder is a prototypical small ball power forward. They pass the ball well. Al Horford is just a good all-around player. Isaiah Thomas is their scorer. I don't quite trust them on the boards or to manufacture buckets as much. But those are all three good teams. But if I'm betting on one team to beat the Cavs, it's the Raptors. Now, the way the Cavs have set themselves up, they might have to go through two of those teams. And they've struggled over the course of not just like the last couple of weeks, since the All-Star break. They've struggled defensively basically all year, and they've struggled mightily since the All-Star break. So the only reason to pick the Cavaliers is LeBron. That's it. Now, it's a good reason, and it's reason enough for me, all things being equal, to pick the Cavs coming out of the East. I know they blew the lead to the Hawks the other day, but they did put themselves up 26 in short fashion. They blew the Celtics out of the building a couple weeks ago. They do have all that shooting around LeBron and everything like that. But they're certainly vulnerable. The question is their great equalizer still enough to get it done? And in cases like this, I'll defer to, I will believe it's not going to happen when it doesn't happen. I don't need to be the guy to predict it not happening. Though Brian Windhorst says there's plenty of reasons for them to worry.
A championship team doesn't allow 44 points in a quarter. And I know it's just one game, but this has been something that's been their issue. This was a microcosm of their season. They started off fantastically, were unbeatable looking in the first half, and in the second half were blah. The Cavs started the season off 28-8, and over the last 45 games, they've been essentially a 500 team, 23-22. They obviously do not have their team tightened up like you'd like to have at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. They say they're not worried, and I guess I can understand it. When you've been down 3-1 to the Golden State Warriors, you got to go on the road. I guess you don't get worried about this, but they're more vulnerable than they've been. They've won 19 of their last 21 Eastern Conference playoff games. They have been an absolute dominating force in the East. I don't think they have that same level of dominance, which leaves them vulnerable when these playoffs start.
The season is such a grind, and remember, they've been there now a couple of times in a row, so it's hard to tell. I mean, as much as you want a team to be motivated, how motivated can you be when you know it doesn't matter that much? I mean, it's sort of disingenuous for any of us to sit here, right, and say the regular season doesn't matter, and then hold the regular season against them to an extreme degree. This will be a very good case study on how predictive regular season numbers are toward playoff success. Let's go to Brock in South Dakota. Brock, you're up first here on First and Last. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Good, man.
What I'm worried about is, okay, I'll do a little bit on basketball here for a second.
Well, that's good to know.
The Cavs are going to come out of the East. That's going to happen. Boston stands no chance against them in the playoffs. It doesn't matter, and also Golden State's probably going to come out in the West. The one thing that I'm worried about is, why are we not talking about hockey even a little bit? There's never been any discussion about hockey ever on this station. And why is that?
Well, you could have used that time to say something about hockey if you wanted to, instead of bemoaning the state of the lack of hockey talk. Look, I'm not going to spend much time on this. I will say, hockey fans, I admire their passion. Hockey fans are maybe the most passionate fan base there is. They're just smaller, and hockey's not as popular overall. Could that ever change? We'll see. Hockey fans, my analogy for them is always the band Fish. You guys know the band Fish? I don't know any of their songs, but every time they have a concert, it's sold out, boy, and that's hockey fans. So they're passionate. They go to the arenas. They support. They call in and say, "Why aren't you talking about hockey? Hockey players are the toughest. The hockey player will be decapitated, pick up his head, put it back on, and skate down the rink." But these things are. It's pretty self-evident why it's not talked about quite as much, because it's not as popular overall. It's more of a cult following. Let's go to Jay in Reno, Nevada. Jay, you're up next on First and Last. Go ahead.
As far as the Cavaliers go, let's face it. As Windhorst said, they were 23 and 22 over their last 45. And I've been hearing all day to do, well, they can flip the switch. You're not flipping a switch if you haven't done it in the last 45 games. I'm sorry. They're not getting to the finals. I agree with you about Toronto because of the build of their team, but I also like Washington because they have three guys that can score and manufacture points in Wall and Beal and Otto Porter, and they got Bertot in center at the center position. And let's face it, Cleveland's not as good this year as they were last year. Their roster's just not as good. I just don't see depth there.
Well, I mean, look, they're not playing as well. The switch does exist. They have flipped it historically. I mean, this is statistically backed up. You know, LeBron's teams have outperformed not only their expectations, but their regular season numbers in the postseason. I mean, that's what you're relying on, is the fact that he's been there 6 straight times. And you see what they are without him. You see what they are with him. Toronto's the team. If one team's going to beat them, that's the team I would pick. And I actually might put Boston third in that pecking order. I might go Toronto, Washington, and Boston. Boston fans are going to be outraged. They're going to be angry. I think Brad Stevens is on Mike and Mike today, isn't he? At 8:30, I think. I mean, Brad Stevens is a heck of a coach. And the Celtics, I give them respect for the way they play. They play good team ball. They just need one more guy. I think that's the only thing. The Celtics need one more guy on the wing. If they had that wing player, if they had acquired Jimmy Butler or Paul George, look out. How about Omar in Brooklyn? Omar, go ahead, man.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Listen, I want to say one thing. I've been saying it all year long that they are not going to the NBA Finals. I said that the Cleveland Cavaliers are not winning the NBA title, right? So now you're coming up to the Eastern Conference Finals. Some things in maybe I'm wrong. I respect your basketball because you love basketball. I love basketball. My thing to there is there is a lot of things that is happening to the Cleveland Cavaliers during the season. It's not a big thing all the time, but small incidents has comes up and creeps up, and it has become like a Tristan Thompson argument. Then this arrest thing, and then they dissing the opponents.
Omar, you only got about 20 seconds. You're too calm.
My point too. Toronto Raptors, number one team that can upset the favorites to upset Cleveland Cavaliers. Number two, Washington, and number three, Indiana Pacers. I think I rank Indiana Pacers more than Washington because they match up against Cleveland, and if they find them in the first round,
you know, Omar, this is the most that was the most calm call that I think you've ever had. The Pacers have the Cavs in the first round, most likely, if the Cavs don't finish in the number one seed.
First and last.
The ESPN Radio Twitter account tweeted out a quote from me from earlier in the show. If I'm betting on a team to beat the Cavs, it's the Raptors. As far as their roster, they're better than Cleveland. And some people really took umbrage with it. Come on, man. You're smoking something and things like that. They are. The Raptors roster is easily better than the Cavaliers top to bottom. I mean, I'm impressed that the Raptors are right there, if you look at the standings, with Boston and Cleveland, considering how much time Kyle Lowry missed. The difference is LeBron enough to put them over the top? Because the Cavs can't win a darn game without LeBron. Can't win a game. And as far as making like value cases and all that stuff, I know it's sort of tiresome to some of you, but here's the simplest way I could do it. If you were to put any other player on the Cavaliers other than LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, your pick, I don't pick them to come out of the Eastern Conference. You just switch them. But he's the only guy where I could still pick the Cavs to come out of the Eastern Conference despite all their struggles. I do have to admit myself, they're looking vulnerable, and if there's one team I were to see taking them out, it would be Toronto. Segue, Raptors. Myles Garrett likes dinosaurs. NFL draft prospect, number one. I like that about him. I saw his dinosaur power rankings. I disagree with them. For one, he had both a Deinonychus and a raptor in his power rankings. I don't think you can have both. The Deinonychus is really the more what the raptor actually was. You know, a velociraptor is really just a 2-foot chicken with feathers and a plot device for Jurassic Park, because I never understood why they brought the raptor back. No one would have gone to that park and gone, I can't believe we didn't see a velociraptor. But they had to bring the cunning ones back who hunt in packs and can open doors and the like. I know you have to have a T-Rex, but that's big. You can keep up with it. Top 5 dinosaurs, I think, objectively, are Tyrannosaurus Rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Brontosaurus, and Pterodactyl. But Myles Garrett likes dinosaurs. I found that endearing. I didn't mind, Golic Jr. was really upset that he went back and ran the 40, sort of showing off. I didn't mind that. But there was something yesterday that I thought wasn't a good look for him. And that was when he was actually on ESPN radio with Russillo and Cannell explaining why he wasn't on ESPN radio with Mike and Mike.
I just don't appreciate the kind of negativity and bias that he shows towards some guys. And I don't feel like I should have to sit there and take that. I mean, I have no problem sitting on and taking criticism from anybody. But when it's just bias, when he shows bias toward a certain team or a certain player and then spouse negativity to anybody else, that just doesn't sit well with me.
So you think because he's an LSU guy, he was knocking A&M? Because, I've known Booger a long time. I've sat with him in this room, and whenever he talked about you, and I could be totally wrong. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about you. So I could have missed something. I thought he would say, against the run, he didn't think you brought it all the time. Is it deeper than that? Because I was a little surprised.
I felt like it was multiple guys. That he just be negative towards.
Like some of the Bama guys, too? Just a theme?
Yeah, it was kind of a theme there, but I have no problem people saying, no, he was weak against the run, but I got better against the run every single year. He was weak against the run, but he played with a broken hand. There was things going on, and I knew I had to get better, whether I was hurt or not, and I worked on that. And you can see it in my play, you can see it on the film, and I just that didn't sit well with me, I guess.
I can understand why it wouldn't sit well with him. I mean, none of us like to be harshly critiqued. What I don't understand is why he couldn't have said that to Booger McFarland, who was on Mike and Mike yesterday. Some of the criticism that I've read has been more the workout warrior sort of knock on Garrett. The word soft has been thrown around. I don't want to put that in Booger's mouth because I don't see that as a direct quote, but that is the label that comes along with that sort of talk. And you don't help that label, this is just me, by appearing soft by not going on the radio show, by not going on the show. It's pretty easy to go on the show and just be like, dude, I don't like what you said about me. That's not true. And it just, I suppose it feels a little premature. Maybe if you have some standing in the league, you've been around for a while, you've gone out there, you've accomplished some things, and all of a sudden you feel you're being unfairly criticized, and it doesn't measure up to your performance, and you go, you know what, I don't want to give that guy the time of day. That's different than when you're not even in the NFL yet, and you're sort of pulling rank as far as that goes. Is it the end of the world? No, of course not. Is it going to have Myles Garrett plummet in the NFL draft to a point where he's not being picked? Of course not. He's still going to be right at the top. But if I'm sitting there and, I know he's headed to my team, then I think twice about it a little bit. It does give me a little bit of pause that the guy, he's, what's the word for it? It's not a responsibility, because he doesn't have a responsibility to be on the show. He's not shirking a responsibility, but that he is allowing it to affect him to the point where he appears to be sensitive in that regard. And the criticism is only going to get worse. It's only going to get more fierce when you get to higher levels of play, especially if you don't show up or play right out the gate. I mean, think about Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, dealt with injuries and all that stuff, but it shows you how quickly the narrative can turn on you. You can go from surefire number one pick to bust real quick, at least in the perception of people. So it's not like a massive PR flub it's going to be forgotten in a couple of days. I just feel if I were in his position, and I'm not, he and I are not alike. We both like dinosaurs. Who doesn't? You know, I have a 2.5-year-old kid. He loves dinosaurs, or as he calls them, rars. So, in that sense, we're alike. But I'm not 6'5", 271 pounds. You know, I'm not a stud defensive lineman. I would cower in fear if Myles Garrett was coming at me. But if I were in his position, if I were all those things, 6'5", 271, stud defensive lineman, if I were all those things, and the knock on me was that I only got it done in the measurables and not on the field, that I didn't want it, that I was soft and all those things, and there was someone in particular who I felt was helping to fuel the fire for that, and I was scheduled to talk to him, I'd step up in that spot and maybe even go at him, right, a little bit. Challenge him a little bit. Hey, why are you saying that about me? I mean, there's a reason I'm the projected number 1 pick in the draft. There's a reason for that. And you can say what you want. That's cool. I'll go ahead and prove you wrong, and maybe we can have this conversation again in a year and you'll be singing a different tune. Because otherwise he's just basically feeding that narrative. He's basically writing the bylines for people.
And Robin, I talked to Booger yesterday about it, and he was like, look, this was a great opportunity for the kid. It's not like he was going to get up there and I was going to continue to come in. I was going to give him a chance. Hey, this is what I've said about you. Let's have a tough conversation, and you tell me why I'm wrong. And it would have given him a perfect opportunity to face a little criticism, stand up there, and deliver, hey, this is exactly why you're wrong. Look at the tape. Look at what I can do. And I think it could have been a really great moment for him.
And we're always softer, us behind the mic, right? When the guy's actually on the phone with you or in the room, right? It's always a little softer. The criticism's always couched a little bit. Eric Hall tweets in, I see your point, but I'm a Browns fan and I'm still taking Garrett number 1 overall without even blinking. I mean, that seems to be the consensus. And again, this is maybe forgotten in a couple of days. I just don't think it was a good look. That's all. Wasn't a good look for Myles Garrett. Still has plenty of upside. First and last brought to you by Upside. Now save big on travel and get a big gift card every trip you buy. You'll love Upside.com. Upside.com. Are the Cavaliers still the favorite to come out of the East? 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Looks like that poll I have up is overwhelming in one direction. Tiverson24 about the Masters jacket and whether it's appropriate to wear it in regular life as practical, regular apparel. I'd wear it every time I left the house until the day I die. And the votes are in at 64% yes, 36% no. Do you guys in the studio agree with that? Dan Z, producer guy, JBT, you'd wear the green jacket?
So speaking of Booger, we went golfing yesterday, and I told him if I had a Super Bowl ring like he did, I'd wear that every day. So green jacket, easy.
Yeah, but it sounds good to wear the ring every day. Rings are sort of cumbersome. Maybe it's because I ride a bike a lot, so you have to grip the handlebars. Most people aren't doing that on a day-to-day basis. Rings are cumbersome. The jacket's not so cumbersome. It just kind of sticks out. It's like, well, I mean, so does the Super Bowl ring. All these things, but it fits into the celebratory culture that everybody is praising all the time. But it seems like for golfers, it kind of goes. It's the antithesis of what I heard about on Sunday and being humble and all that. That's why I think sometimes I like to call it humble arrogance. But who can blame you? You win the Masters, rock the green jacket. I ain't hating on it.
First and last.
I like the idea of, shortening the NBA season for one, which we'll get to in just a minute. But shortening the NBA season and allowing for more space between the games and then allowing for a little bit of space between the end of the regular season and the postseason. And what I would do there is a single elimination tournament between the teams that did not make the playoffs. And 14 teams, so it doesn't work very evenly, right? How would you have to bracket that up? How would you make it work so it's even? I would have the teams that are the odd teams out, they're just out. The worst teams are out. They get the 13th and 14th pick. Then the rest play a single elimination tournament with players getting bonuses for each win, so you incentivize the players to play hard. And the winner of the tournament gets the number 1 pick in the draft, second place, number 2, so on and so forth down the line.
What about like a round robin? Like 2 divisions of 7. You play each team, so you play 6 games. The best 2 records in each division advance to a 4-team playoff.
Too many games. I like the idea of, I don't like Daryl Morey was talking about on Mike and Mike yesterday, a 1-game elimination in the NBA playoffs, because I guess I'm old school in that sense, where the series and all that, I like that, and I don't want a great team being eliminated and the finals being anticlimactic as a result. But for this, because I don't care that much, I want single elimination. I think that adds to the drama, kind of like the play-in games with baseball, right? The teams that you're not so upset that they don't get a chance in a series because they didn't have the best records in the first place. So the lottery teams all play, and the ones that are the worst are already out. So you don't want to be the worst.
Well, you could structure it like a college basketball conference tournament, right? Because there are conferences that have like 14 teams, and they found a way to make every team gets to play in the conference tournament, and they have a way to do it.
It can be done, right? I mean, this can be done logistically. We could figure it out.
But does the worst team get to be the 1 seed, or does the best team get to be the 1 seed?
The best team is the 1 seed.
So the team that was closest to closest to making the playoffs?
Essentially, the Miami Heat or the Chicago Bulls this year, whichever team doesn't make the playoffs, the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference. Those would be the top-seeded teams. And if they, wind up winning the tournament, they get the number 1 overall pick. Conceptually, I like that. And it's like a warm-up for the actual playoffs. In the week before the playoffs, you give some guys, if you shorten the season and you spread it out more, you give some guys some rest before the playoffs, but you don't lose the basketball hype because this is taking place. Let's go to Jeff in Massachusetts. Jeff, you're on first and last here with Robin Lundberg. Go ahead.
Oh, come on, Robin. You know this is John.
It's John? I thought your name was Jeff before.
No, I use the name Jeff because you didn't want to take any of my calls. But I'm just very pleased to see that you're going to see about LeBron James. You can see how he just gives up. He acts so arrogant, like he doesn't even care about the games, and like it's not even his fault when they lose. I know he didn't play last night, so it really wasn't his fault. But I mean, haven't you seen the attitude from him that doesn't seem quite like a team player or quite like he cares?
So how would you respond to the championship last year over a 73-win team coming back from 3-1, or the 6 consecutive finals, or the fact that every team he leaves goes into the cellar and every team he goes to the championship round? Like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, he's made it to the NBA finals, and there hasn't been that strong of an East, which most people will agree with.
You don't respond to it, is what you do there, Jeff John in Massachusetts. Thanks for the call, man. Let's go to Logan in Ohio. Logan, you're up next on the show. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, as far as the regular season goes with the Cavs, I think there's 2 things. I mean, one, you can't downplay it too much. I know it doesn't matter as much, especially the spots that they're in. I mean, but the biggest thing is once you start getting used to losing, it's not a good thing. You get used to losing. I mean, you got to have some kind of go out winning and get used to the winning thing, not the losing thing. That's all I got.
You're talking about Cleveland right now. Well, I mean, Cleveland, since the All-Star break, they've been a 500 team, and they've been an abysmal defensive team. So really what people are asking is that, over that kind of sample size, is that fake? Or is it real? Is that just who they are? Now, they did start the season great, so part of me goes, oh, well, they started the season great when they were fresh. They got a little tired. They've been through this a lot. And they take their foot off the gas, and they'll be ready to go come playoff time. It's going to be a very interesting experiment. It's going to be the case study in a lot of ways for how much regular season performance is predictive of postseason performance when you've got a team that's already proven itself in a certain sense. Because the rule of thumb is that you have to be top 10 in both offense and defense to win the NBA championship. And the Cavs are nowhere close to top 10 in defense. Now, the outlier to that was the 2001 Lakers, who were not a good defensive team in the regular season and then crushed everyone in the postseason. Ran roughshod. They lost, I think, 1 game. The Iverson over Lou game 1 of the NBA Finals. So we do know that when the playoffs come, the Cavs can be a different animal. And we do know about, the myth of playoff LeBron. It's not a myth. The tale, I guess you would call it. I mean, 538, when I was referencing those numbers before, how they just have a 4% chance for the Cavs to win, while Vegas gives them a 20 to 25% chance. In the same piece, they illustrate how LeBron's teams have found a higher gear in the playoffs. Now, in their model, it still only raises them up to like a 6% chance with playoff LeBron, but that is a real thing. Let's go to, how about Martin in Florida? Martin, you're up next here on First and Last. Go ahead.
Hey, I got the perfect solution for this NBA draft. The big issue that everyone says is the tanking issue, correct?
Yeah, it's one of the two issues that come up are resting and tanking, yeah.
Okay, so how about this? What you do is you take the teams that barely made the playoffs. So you have, you just said Denver, either Chicago or Miami, and they become now the number one draft pick. And then you reverse the orders. Instead of going worst to best, you go from best.
I understand what you're saying. You pay off the team that was the best of the worst, right? Well, looks like he's gone. But I like the fact that I like having them play for it. It just adds a little extra drama. What about Justin in Columbus? Justin, you're up next. Go ahead.
Good morning, Robin. Hey, I like your idea about the playoffs for the lottery. The NBA could actually make a little money off that. And the Cavs, they're lacking in toughness,
the NIT,
man.
Right?
They have no toughness. Excuse me?
It's the NIT, basically.
Oh, that'd be a great idea. They can make some loot off that, just a little bit, maybe some commercial money. And also they have no toughness on the Cavs. I'm sorry, they're lacking in all toughness. And I don't think Tristan Thompson will be on the team next year. I think he's gone. I think he's done.
I don't know about that. Tristan Thompson's a very valuable player. I mean, LeBron may yell at him or what have you, and maybe the Kardashian curse is what got them. When it's all said and done, we'll look back and realize that's what it is. But Tristan Thompson's a very valuable player because he does two things at an elite level. One thing he does is offensive rebound, and that hurts Boston in particular. Boston has super-duper trouble with Tristan Thompson, keeping him off the glass. And the other thing he does is guard well on the perimeter for a big. He can switch and pick up Steph Curry, for instance, an extremely valuable skill for a big man. And you don't find that too often. So I would say between those two things, he's a guy I would hold on to. In fact, I value Tristan Thompson more than Kevin Love. If I'm just saying guys I would keep versus not keep, I think he actually is more important of a cog to winning the championship probably than Kevin Love. Let's go to Henry in the Bronx. Henry, you're up next here on First and Last. Go ahead.
Robin, good morning. I just want to say, man, how dare these people question the king? How dare they tell him that he's complaining too much? Listen, everyone knows that LeBron James will turn up on the playoffs. This is all a show. It's just to make everyone get worried and be like, okay, I don't know, maybe LeBron's going to have a problem. Listen, man, that dude's going to turn up. And as far as the NBA draft, I just don't see why they don't have let the worst team in the NBA have the first draft pick like the NFL. Have a good day, bro.
Well, I mean, that's basically what they do, just a little bit of odds thrown in there to spice it up a little bit.
Thank you for listening to the First and Last podcast. You can listen and subscribe to all ESPN podcasts in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. First and Last.